So, heading into this, I was like, so what is this? Like, when I first heard the announcement, I had totally Kara, and he just did an eternal screaming on Twitter. So, yeah, clearly he was not happy about another event comic happening, which is understandable because you have Doomsday Clock going on, Heroes in Crisis, and now you got this comic and Hero of the Villain, which is an event storyline. But then it came out that, oh, no. This is not an in continuity story, which means it should technically be a DC Black Label. Especially when I read it, the context of it was like basically looking at DC Black Label. And I was just wondering, why isn't it a DC Black Label? I was sure they would do this with Injustice eventually when they start reprinting certain stuff with the label on it. Like DC Black Label was basically the new version of Elseworlds for the most part. And when you read the first issue, it's like, yeah, this is a DC Black Label or Elseworlds story because if that wasn't the case and it was in the dark multiverse, then that would mean you can't have certain characters be here because they have to be dead in the other stories. What I mean by this? Well, I'll get to that. We open up with Darkseid. Yeah, that's the one character you can't have in this story unless it's an Elseworld story or a DC Black Label and out of continuity, because what happens in this story with Darkseid, he can't be in Justice League Odyssey and he can't be in any other story, so clearly that's not the case. But moving on, so we get this narration how there's no such thing as monsters, how there's nothing hiding in the dark, and how nothing was going to jump out of the shadows, and basically Darkseid's just twisting around, and then he gets punched in the face by Superman in the jaw. Turns out that there was an invasion Darkseid committed. The Justice League defeated him as per the course, and they basically tell him to say that you will never return. And Darkseid just says, "I will not return. I have no need, for the truth is," and takes off the lasso of truth and throws it back at her, at Wonder Woman. He says, "I have what I came for," and Green Arrow, being Captain Obvious, points out that, I thought that was going really well, right up until that last ominous sentence. Congrats, you are now Captain Obvious in the story. And one of the things that the narration did was saying this. It was perhaps the least finest hour. It was their last together. Spoilers! Now I have nothing to look forward to. And the issue is called Going Viral. You'll know that in a minute. And it turns out that Cyborg's missing, and he's not in Metropolis. It's revealed that, yeah, Vic is being tracked by Batman, and then Barry Allen finds out that, oh, you don't. He doesn't know, do you? He doesn't know. And sure enough, Batman doesn't confess to this, and basically asks the question, do you have a tracker on Superman? And Batman pauses and like, no. Yes, Flash. Would I lie? And then Green Arrow continues to point out the freaking obvious by saying, anyone else concerned about that slight pause there? Yeah, basically Green Arrow in this issue was Captain Obvious. So Wonder Woman says the morality of all this crap for a moment. Yeah, it turns out that he's not in the solar system, and then they ask where is he, and nope, it turns out that they're in that Cyborg is trapped in Apocalypse. DCeased, being the creepy what looks like a Takana from Mortal Kombat with his mouth the way it is, says the anti-life equation. Do you know of it, Metal Man? Cyborg just says no, and then starts mocking about how the new gods need to basically get this constant need to be reassured that they're powerful. And sure enough, Darkseid, after moments of talking between DCeased and Cyborg, just comes in And Cyborg points out the obvious. Were you just waiting in the corridor to make a good entrance? And Darkseid just narrows his eyes and just gives the order of remove his tongue, Desaad, and Desaad does so. And when you look at it in the context, that was pretty graphic. Like, they don't show him cutting off the tongue. No, what they show is Desaad's bloody arm. Yeah. So the other half of the anti-life equation, Darkseid already has, and the other half is in Cyborg. And sure enough, he prepares to merge the anti-life equation with the physical and the digital and physical without destroying the host. And Desaad just says, yeah, that might be worrisome. If he is killed by the process, the equation will cease to exist. And then Darkseid just points out that we need to control Victor Stone's end. I will summon death. He then activates the Darkseid. The Darkseid activates the the Mother Box, and death came, and the Black Racer basically strangled, and yeah, it doesn't end well. You see, yeah, here's the thing about this. Darkseid and Desaad did something rather very, 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 very stupid. They did the impossible. They changed the equation of the anti-life equation, which basically means they had tried to divide by 0 and create a paradox event. And sure enough, we get the graphic imagery of Darkseid clawing out his own skull. They've corrupted the Darkseid equation, and the Black Racer just says, it is time for a god to die. Desaad sends Cyborg back to Earth, no doubt causing hell, but it's already too late. Darkseid just punches through Black Racer. I don't know if he's dead. It's hard to really call him that he's dead or anything, but yeah, Darkseid is trying to claw out the anti-life equation out of his skull, but it's too late. Darkseid then falls into the core of Apocalypse, and Desaad, since he was immune to all diseases, which means he could have been a theoretical cure, and Desaad, unfortunately, is killed along with all of Apocalypse. So Darkseid no longer is around. That was quick. And then, sure enough, Cyborg returns and is connected to the internet, which means he has automatically killed billions of people. Cyborg's mouth is bleeding, and sure enough, the anti-life equation has infected all of social media and all of that. Cyborg tried to firewall himself to cut himself off, but the damage was already done. Sure enough, the anti-life equation affected everyone who shared, messaged, or tweeted the equation. So basically what this is basically saying is that this is sort of a commentary on how the internet and technology will bring about the end of the world. So basically we made Skynet, except this time with the anti-life equation of gods. And then, in order to confound this whole T+ rating, even though it really should have been a black label issue, people are immediately graphically cutting themselves, trying to rip their faces off, and then the equation where they're enslaving them, and everyone went to hell. Then we get back to Scott Free, aka Mr. Miracle, and Big Barda, about how Cyborg is being held on Apocalypse and says they'll go. And Barda and Scott Free agree to go. However, that's already been put to the side because now the world is on fire, basically. All hell is broken loose. And Superman's immediately concerned about John and Lois. Oh, and also Damian is hanging out with John and playing video games. And sure enough, Superman seemed to have deduced rather quickly about how this is the internet, which is never shown, so we can only assume that Tom Taylor is expecting us to have read Final Crisis or know the basics of the anti-life equation and how they, in the Final Crisis story, how they use social media and the internet to basically infect millions of people, albeit not through the massive killing spree that's causing, more like mind control. And sure enough, Superman destroys the phone and destroys the TV. Batman cuts off the internet with virus quarantine, firewalls are in place, all systems running on local internet. And sure enough, Gotham is basically done for. And yeah. Yeah. 600 million people have been infected, and within days it will be billions. And yeah, Batman realizes that the connection has not been disabled in the house, and he orders an electromagnetic pulse inside the manor, shutting off all power. So, yeah, and Lois points out when Superman says, "We need to assemble the League." Clark, look out there. Who knows what's left of the League? Damian tries to contact Bruce. He's not answering. And, yeah, it turns out all hell is broken loose, that Damian's now concerned for his dad. And Batman isn't exactly social, so basically he should be safe on that. Until we cut back to Batman, who's looking for Dick Grayson and Tim Drake. And sure enough, he's also looking for Alfred. He finds Alfred with a knife, and it turns out that Dick Grayson is infected. Dan DiDio's dream to see Dick Grayson destroyed. And sure enough, Dick Grayson, after he tried to claw his face out, is immediately consumed by the anti-life equation and attacks Bruce Wayne. And he doesn't want to fight Dick Grayson, and then Tim Drake comes out of nowhere and starts biting on his arm. And sure enough, at the end of the issue shows that Dick Grayson just took a huge chunk of his neck, so Batman has got to be killed. And also clawing at his chest. So I'm just like, yeah, he's dead, right? He's dead, right? Like, it'd be a miracle if he somehow survived that. So, yeah. Yeah. So that's the end of the first issue. Wasn't that so kid-friendly fun of teens? Yeah. So, yeah, basically, Cyborg got everyone killed. There's no way this is going to have a happy ending. This is clearly going to be what Dan DiDio dreams of the DC Universe, where everyone is miserable and dark, and everyone's violent, and he's gotten Dick Grayson finally out of his hair. That's at least my interpretation of what Dan DiDio likes. So, yeah, this issue was rather kind of short when you look at it from the greater picture. But, yeah, I was just thinking when I saw this, is like, why isn't this a DC Black Label? And this is what they can get away with the Teen Plus rating? I would think that would be much more Black Labeled and more mature content inside. I don't get the whole Teen Plus, but not have it at the DC Black Label. Also, if you look at it from this perspective, now Tom Taylor is the one who wrote this, and if you don't remember who that is, it's actually quite simple. He's the guy that wrote Injustice 1 and 2, wrote the Injustice comics until at least year 4 and 5. But did write Injustice 2's comics, all 75 issues. So that should say something. And yeah, to make him be the writer of this Elseworld story, because that's basically what it is. And I really am kind of trying to wonder why they wanted to do the pun of DC with DCeased. It's just, why? Anyway, so yeah. This was a shock value issue with a lot of signs that, yeah, everything's gonna go. Everything is basically, we already got the ending. This is gonna end badly, and if Batman's dead, then basically, as DC loves to say that Batman's the solution to everything, that means he's screwed. That means the rest of the DC universe is screwed, because there's no one who has the same intellectual prowess as Batman, especially since Dick Grayson and Tim Drake are dead. Like, you have Damian Wayne, but he's a kid, and he doesn't have as much training time as, say, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake. Like, maybe Batgirl, but one of the later covers in the series shows her infected, so clearly that means she's probably infected. So, yeah, everything's just bad all around for the DC Universe, and we can all blame Darkseid for wanting to divide by 0. I always knew math would be the end of everything. Somehow. So yeah, this was a relatively short video. Like, we're only at 15 minutes. Normally when I talk about a comic, especially the first issue, it takes like 20 or so. So yeah, we'll have to see this for the next several months of issues of DCeased. And so yeah, those were my thoughts on DCeased. Issue number 1. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more.